There are no longer gray areas in the implied intent of major Western nations, such as France, Spain, Portugal, Canada, the UK, Australia, and others, to isolate or destroy Israel. Hamas and associated jihadist murderers are not Israel's primary enemies. Rather, Israel's real enemies are its purported allies, those Western powers seeking its demise by legitimizing a terror-dominated Palestinian state alongside, and within, the borders of the world's only Jewish homeland. Ironically, these are the countries Israel is defending as it fights a seven-front war, sacrificing nearly 1,000 of its heroic soldiers. Israel is defending these Western nations against an invasion that President Donald J. Trump clearly warned is not sustainable. You're destroying your countries. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe, and nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country, you can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained. What makes the world so beautiful is that each country is unique. But to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders, as we do now, and to limit the sheer numbers of migrants entering their countries and paid for by the people of that nation that were there and that built that particular nation at the time. They put their blood, sweat, tears, money into that country, and now they're being ruined. Proud nations must be allowed to protect their communities and prevent their societies from being overwhelmed by people they have never seen before with different customs, religions, with different everything. Where migrants have violated laws, lodged false asylum claims, or claimed refugee status for illegitimate reasons, they should, in many cases, be immediately sent home. And while we will always have a big heart for places and people that are struggling and truly compassionate, answers will be given. We have to solve the problem, and we have to solve it in their countries, not create new problems in our countries. With Europe's major powers recognizing an independent Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly on September 23rd, and with the burden of sanctions to various degrees, coupled with a ban or restrictions on sales of weapons and munitions by hitherto allies, Israel stands almost alone, except for the current U.S. administration. Raging against Israel are those hypocritical, self-righteous, self-seeking, egocentric, cowardly leaders. Emmanuel Macron, France; Keir Starmer, UK; Anthony Albanese, Australia; Mark Carney, Canada; Pedro Sanchez, Spain, and their ilk, seemingly without an ounce of integrity between them, supporting an avowed genocidal death cult that publicly expresses the desire to murder all Jews, Christians, and other infidels, and take down the West. Israel faces enemies from all fronts, not excluding many Israelis. Who stands against Israel's leaders and elected government? Large numbers of mainly leftist elitist Jews, both in Israel and in the diaspora, who seek to topple Israel's duly elected government, while thousands of able draft-age Haredi males of the refuse to join the military, at a time when hundreds of their compatriots have been killed to protect them, their families, and the nation itself. Islamists around the world in the millions seek Israel's death and destruction. Western leaders do not care if Israel survives or not, and from their recent actions apparently would prefer if it did not. Western leaders, from their actions in selling out Israel's security to its enemies, look as if they do not care if any Jews survive. After all, Europe has few Jews, 0.2% of the continent's population, in the overall scheme of things. Rather than supporting Israel as it fights not only for its own survival, but to defend the values of the West, Macron, Starmer, Sanchez, Carney, Albanese and company vote for a Palestinian state within Israel, to the detriment not only of Israel's safety and security, but their own. If you do not want to fight the invasions in your own countries, at least stand aside and do not obstruct someone else doing it for you. These feckless so-called leaders even fail to protect their own Jewish citizens from domestic terror. By so acting, and by legalizing Islamic Sharia law, they are oozing toward complete submission to the Islamist hordes they have encouraged to reside in their midst. In this way, as Trump cautioned, They are actively destroying their own nations and Western civilization itself. The forthright journalist Melanie Phillips queried, "Are these people wicked or just very, very stupid?" Initially, fair-minded people gave these leaders the benefit of the doubt. However, with their recent actions against Israel on the world stage, it has become obvious that they cannot simply be written off as stupid or naive. Some are highly educated and intelligent. The only explanation is that they possibly do have evil intent. They did not even bother to make their recognition of a non-existent Palestinian state conditional on Hamas releasing the hostages. At best, they might be regarded as worthless. A supine NATO does not even appear willing to invest anything other than pious words into helping Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky oppose Russia's outright acts of war against Estonia, Denmark, and Poland. Their actions are probably designed, as in World War II, just to hunker down against adversaries and appease domestic Islamists. Even though these newcomers to Europe have publicly sworn to murder Jews and burn them alive if possible, just as Hamas did to not only to Jews, but also to Arabs and others on October 7, 2023. Insofar as Jews are concerned, the upshot of the compromised consciences of these major European leaders is that, as Israel's Diaspora Affairs Minister Amichai Chikli made clear, the streets of Europe are once again not safe for Jews. Many of its leaders, instead of showing courage, show cowardice. Instead of standing with the truth, they stand with Palestinian propaganda falsehoods. Instead of standing with those who were attacked, they stand with those who launched a barbaric assault. Naturally, Hamas and other Islamist fanatics are overjoyed at the UN resolution recognizing their terror state of Palestine as independent. In this way they have, in the main, achieved their aims and been rewarded for the murderous onslaught on October 7th, murdering defenseless babies, boys, girls, the elderly, and infirm, while carting others off to tunnel dungeons as hostages and playthings. The message sent to the terrorists is, terrorism works, so keep doing it. The Palestinian National Movement, Fatah and Hamas wings alike, largely has shown itself to be committed to Israel's debilitation and destruction, not to a peaceful two-state solution, notes Israeli columnist David M. Weinberg. Whereas the Western leaders in question could, once upon a time, be excused as having a degree of moral ambiguity, this excuse can no longer apply. Obviously, they are not honest brokers. They want a Palestinian state, wrote Israeli political analyst Avi Abelo in a September 22 column, not because they care about Arabs, but because they can't stand a proud, strong Jewish state that defends itself. Turning to address Starmer, Albanese, and Carney, Abelo scathingly writes, "Thank you for making it crystal clear that the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia now stand with a genocidal death cult, that they reward the barbaric atrocities of October 7, 2023, with diplomatic prizes, that morality, memory, and justice have been officially sacrificed on the altar of Jew hatred, woke politics, and Islamic appeasement. Let's stop pretending this has anything to do with peace, rights, or law. Starmer's plan is not about justice. It's not about a two-state solution. It's not even about Palestinians. It's about one thing only: punishing the Jewish people for surviving. Sadly, suicidally, it is also about appeasing their radical Islamist voters, who will probably reciprocate, as Trump noted, by wanting more. Despite much of the world harboring animosity towards the Jews, possibly out of envy for having had the audacity, through hard work, to do so well, who else has turned deserts and malaria swamps into a thriving state? The Jews and their ancestral homeland of Israel shall survive.